everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rabbi's Daughter podcast. I'm Shira, and I'm very happy to be here with my dad.
Hello, Shira. Also happy to be here.
So today we're going to speak about Charedim. Not in general, but more about army service and politics, the way they take part in Israel and the country and in the world a bit. So in last week's Parsha was Parashat Bamidbar, and the Jewish people were counted. And the only people that were counted were the people that did the army.
Or fit to serve in the army.
And fit to serve in the army. They said, Kol Yotzei Tzava, and these are the people that are counted. We don't count the rest. I guess back then it didn't used to be the way it is now. Like anyone who could do the army just did it. So it kind of makes sense. But today, to count the people in Israel and to count only the people who do the army is lacking something.
You'll miss big chunks.
Yeah. So, Abba, this is our topic for today. It's a hard one, and we're going to nail it. So what do you think about it? What do you think about all this thing? There are like two sides, definitely, and you know both sides quite well. So what's your first take on it?
Okay, thank you, Shira. And it's a topic that comes up not just because of Parashas Bamidbar, but also because the Israeli government is about to be toppled, meaning it's about to be taken down because of this issue, meaning because of the inability of the government to reach an agreed law between the Charedim and the rest of Israel concerning the Haredi enlistment, the Haredi draft. This is going to take down the government, where we're going to go into an election cycle in the middle of a war, and with questions of, do we take out Iran or not? And with the biggest questions facing the Jewish people currently, we're going to go into the whirlwind of an election cycle because of this.
Yeah,
because
but
of the
I wouldn't
question
say
of
it because of like the government. It's because of the Charedim in the government that refuse to reach any
compromise.
Yeah.
Well, you could say that, but like you said a moment ago, it's not simple. It's not simple from either side, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But just to realize the magnitude of this issue. It's not like, oh, let's talk about Charedim and the army. It's like, let's talk about the future of Israel. You know how many soldiers the army lost over the last year and a half or 600 days? 10,000. 10,000 because of those who were killed, and many more, right, Rahman al-Islam, and many more who were wounded and left the ranks of the army. Now, aside from those 10,000 who were lost, the army in any case said that we need 2 new divisions, which is something like another 20,000 soldiers, meaning it's altogether 30,000 soldiers that are needed. Where do you get them from? Meaning there's a real demand from Israel, let's say, to the Charedim.
And it's hard. I have friends that are going now to serve in the army for the 6th time.
Well, yeah, a lot are going for the 3rd or 4th round. 6th is maybe extreme, but many are going for the 3rd and 4th time, and you should know it is exceedingly difficult. We're talking about not 18-year-olds. We're talking about older.
They have kids. They
people
have
with
work.
Kids, with families, with jobs, with with psychological issues, with couplehood, meaning marriages that are being affected in a real way. I have close friends whose wife told him, this time you're not going, and he said, okay, I'm not going. And then all of a sudden, it's 4th time, meaning he's served for 300 days. He got a 4th call up, and he said, I can't. And then he gets a tzav ma'atzar, meaning he gets an order, a legal order that he is going to be imprisoned for not coming to the army. So he says, okay, I have to go. He gets to the army. He's tried. He gets put on trial for not coming. Can you even imagine this? He gets put on trial and he gets a sentence. Suspended sentence.
I thought people could just say no.
Not at all.
I know many people who just
The only
said
people
no.
who can just say no are the Charedim. If you just say no and you're not there, meaning if you're a combat soldier, the army needs you. That's the situation right now. Even if you've done your 300 days, it's a crazy situation. And therefore, the question of Haredi and army service has come to a head for all the right reasons, meaning it's something that is
we haven't
deservedly.
dealt with it for many years, and now
and now there's no choice.
Need to,
and now there's no
which
choice.
is good because one day we have to, but
Yeah,
It's hard.
I think that there's like a lot of complex issues. You need time for them to become clarified. And I think that this issue is being clarified over time. I think it's become clear even to the hardliners who are still fighting it, but it's become clear there's no way out of this one. Charedim will serve in the IDF, and the question is which arrangements will be made. Even some of the Rabbanim that I'm in touch with, some of them, the Gedei Rabbanim who are a part of the decision-making process, they realize, they know deep down that something's going to give. They're just trying to get the best positioning, the best maneuvering, that this should happen in a way that's acceptable to them. But they know it's going to give.
So I'm actually happy you brought it up, because in the past few days I've heard a few comments from a few people that spoke about Rabbanim, about Haredi Rabbanim, and they all said, like, look, you sit with them one-on-one, they'll agree with you, they'll say that's right. Charedim, or at least the guys who don't learn in a yeshiva, should go to the army. But when they speak publicly, they don't say that. They just say, like, never. I don't know if namut v'lo nitgayes. You can translate it.
Right. But we shall die and we shall not enlist.
Yeah. So I don't know if that extreme.
They're not saying that. No.
Yeah, but the parts of the people that are refusing to give a hand to recruit Charedim.
Yeah, so doublespeak.
That's like, right. It's really hard for me.
So this, well, listen, doublespeak is not just a Haredi habit.
Doublespeak is from
1984. But I didn't mean it in the full 1984 sense. We all speak different languages. We all speak differently when we're in the privacy of our home and when we're speaking in public. And perhaps in the Haredi space, it's more accentuated, meaning it's a little bit more prominent. But let me try to explain the position.
It's not just prominent, it's what we expect people to do.
Yeah,
I know
we
that.
all know. We all know
people
this.
say things and they don't actually mean it, and they know they don't mean it.
And it's because of the close community structure, which makes people, even prominent Rabbanim, it makes them afraid. Afraid is a strong word, but yes, very reluctant to say what they might really think for fear of the consequences. And those are different consequences that could happen. Number one, people will kind of misunderstand. They'll say, oh, we're changing things up all of a sudden. You know, for a society that keeps saying nothing ever changes, to suddenly say we're changing things up could be an earthquake, or could be, significantly damaging to the infrastructures within the society. But usually the fear is different. Usually the fear is what will happen to my own kind of, position. I don't want to say standing, but yes, the ability to lead. When you say something which is controversial, you'll have all of these extremists who will come and get you. And it happens even if you think about Rav Leib Steinman, who was really the, Gadol Ador. He was the rabbinic leader after Rav Elyashiv's passing. This is in the beginning of the 21st century. And next in line was Rav Leib Steinman. And when he became too much of a moderate for some of the more strident positions within the Haredi space, they came after him. And what resulted was this fissure, this breakaway within Litvish Haredi society of what's become known as a Peleg HaYerushalmi. So it's not simple. But let me go back to your original question. And what's going on? What's the take? Yeah. These Rabbanim, why are they speaking in two languages? It's not so simple. It's not just, hey, we're afraid. The idea of Charedim serving in the IDF, even if it's those who are not engaged in full-time Torah study, is a radical idea. It's radical because Charedim's self-understanding is that they invest all of their energies in the internal Haredi project, which defines not just a role and a mission to build the yeshivas, to be parts of the communities, to be parts of the religious services, to do everything, the institutions, everything internal. It's not just a role, but it's also an identity. And when you move into the army, even if the army is Mahadrin, even if the army is an army where you're going to have, learning sessions, starim, and by the way, Hashmonaim actually has this. The new Haredi brigade has these arrangements, not just prayer arrangements, but Torah study. It's amazing. You go there for the Torah study sessions. There's no hierarchy. For the army, that's an unbelievable thing. Usually, armies have very strong hierarchy, and it's true here too.
So it's supposed to be.
It is, but but it extends everywhere. For example, we have a community member called Shlomo Samowitz. You know Samowitz.
Yeah.
So Samowitz, we know both as a community member and as a table tennis partner.
Yeah.
So he goes to the army, he does Shlav Bet, and he hears table tennis. And he goes and says, hey, I'm playing next week in the Israel Open. Can I join you to do a bit of training? And they say, no, this is for commanders alone. And they say, and he says, come on, guys, like,
he's not 20.
He's not, he's 40.
He's 40.
And these guys are 19. And he says, come on, won't you let me just, practice a few balls? They say, no, good luck to you, but you can't play. This is for commanders. The army has hierarchy.
Yeah.
And in the study hall, in the base medrash, no hierarchy. Meaning you have the senior commanders who are learning Torah with the privates, with the simple
I didn't know
soldiers.
That's nice.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's Hashmonaim. And nevertheless, for Charedim to say, you know what? We can go there. We can be a part of this. It's still a tremendous shift. I think you can't even imagine how big a shift this is in terms of identity, in terms of your social belonging. Are you primarily a Vishnitzer Chassid, or are you a part of this Jewish people living in Israel? You're a part of Israel, and you're also a Vishnitzer Chassid. It's a whole change in mindset. It's a whole change in the perspective of your belonging, and it will make a huge difference. It'll make a difference to who you vote for. It'll make a difference to where you feel you invest your energies, what you care about in terms of what's going on in the Jewish people. It's a real shift, and that's why there's a fear. Even though I think people are understanding that this is inevitable, it will happen, but I can nevertheless understand, even though of course I'm a big supporter of Charedim being in the army, but I understand the reluctance, the reticence, the concern.
So it's going to take time. And I don't think, and I guess you also don't think that it's going to be like one day that everyone
overnight
suddenly is going to go to the army. That's not going to be the way it is. It's like...
Well, clearly it's not.
Well, not even in a year. It's going to be like slowly. Like first a few people, then more, then a bit more.
Redemption is coming slowly.
So you believe in like, how do you say talich?
Process.
In processes. You're
processes. Listen, processes is what it's about. I have to say though, we don't have patience. Israel
so that's what I was going to say. Like this, we can't wait 2 years or 10 years for this process to take time, because it took time for the past decades, not decades, but maybe 20 years that Charedim became more Israeli. That was possible for Charedim to be more Israeli and still be Charedim. We see now, and it was here before the war also. But it was really slow, and it did not involve the army almost. And it did a bit, but not really. So we can't really wait that long, but you usually don't think it's a good idea to go like fast.
Yeah, of course. We generally like evolution more than revolution. That's true. But let me say a couple of words on your specific question, because it's a big one and it's a very important one. We have to understand, yes, there's been a process for the last couple of decades of Charedim becoming a greater part of Israeli society, in the workforce, in academia. Education is shifting. There's a lot of things that are going on, but that hasn't really impacted army service. And the reason is because army service is that much more of a game changer in terms of who we are, in terms of identity. Don't forget, young people going to the army, this is what molds your identity. There's a reason why for Ben Gurion the army was the place where we mold the identity of the new Israeli Jew, this melting pot idea. There's a reason why that was the army, because you have kids when they're 18, 19, 20, 21, and they shift, they mold they become who they are over the course of the army. It also matures them a lot. They become people. They become, real members of society and productive members of society, and so on and so on. So army is a big deal. And there's a reason why the greatest resistance, as it were, has been the army. There's another reason, because Israel wasn't so interested in Charedim participating in the army. It wasn't on it wasn't not on the agenda. It was. Of course it was. In 2019, 2020, we went through election cycles also because of this issue. But if you go to the army and you ask them, then prior to October 7th, the army was not saying, hey, we want Charedim.
It's not worth it to work so hard to get the Charedim there.
It wasn't.
You don't need the soldiers.
The army was much more interested in integrating, let's say, women.
A
woman in every tank, a female soldier.
And you can't do that if you want to have Charedim in every unit.
There was a real tension. And the army was very explicit. I spoke to these, senior officers, and they were very explicit about it. In the tension between bringing in women into the IDF and bringing Charedim, it's a no-brainer. We'll take the women, and good luck with the government. The government will have to live with a Haredi issue. We're not so interested. Post-October 7th, that's changed. But therefore, it's hard to speak about this process in terms of decades. It's really a post-October 7th issue in many senses. Of course, not in every sense, but in many senses. And how do you expedite, to make it faster? How do you speed up the process? It will be a process. How do you speed it up? Well, that's what the current controversy in government is over, right? What does the government want? What does Yuli Edelstein, who's representing the government in the negotiation with the Charedim, what does he want? He wants sanctions. Why does he want sanctions? Because he says, listen, slow processes are all very nice. We love them.
We don't have time for that.
But we don't have patience. Politically, we don't have time. Meaning the Israeli public is speaking in a, I wouldn't say unified, but in a strong and fairly unified voice. We need Charedim in the IDF. This is said to be the biggest issue for the next election cycle. We have other issues.
Yeah.
We have Iran, we have the economy, we have the Palestinian Arab-Israeli conflict. We have other big issues. But this is becoming kind of setting itself up to be the biggest issue. And therefore, Yuli Edelstein, we have to expedite this process. How do you expedite the process? You know how? Sanctions.
Yeah, it makes them think twice.
Yeah. You have to make sure that the ones who are staying in yeshiva are the ones that are ready to pay the price. And that's what Edelstein is saying. What are we're making a division. Okay, the ones who are not full-time learning, they need to be in the army. The ones who are in full-time learning, we're prepared to give them the exemption. You guys carry on learning. But how does that divide? Well, it depends on what kind of sanctions you have. What kind of, on the one hand, incentives you have, positive incentives, and what kind of negative sanctions you have, because you want the ones that are in yeshiva to be the ones that are really dedicated to your Torah study. If it's just a doddle, you just have to sign up for yeshiva, and then you get exempted no matter what you do in yeshiva. So, come on, who's going to come? If Charedim understand the army to be a kind of voluntary thing, I volunteer for the army. If it's a voluntary thing, who's going to come? Who's going to exit? Who's going to leave his comfort zone, his parents' comfort zone?
Maybe it wasn't you. I heard someone that said a few days ago that Charedim see the army as their army, not their own army, but it's
their
your
army, right? It's
I'm gonna be in your army. I'm gonna protect your people, and
well, the protection is clearly for everyone. But yes, the Charedim,
but they don't see it as our army.
Yeah,
that's their army,
which is part of the whole identity / role division. Since inception of the State of Israel, the Charedim have seen their identity and their role as being internal. And so the army, hey, that's your army, right? I'm going to serve in your army. That's like your job. And our job is Torah study, religious services, devotion, prayer, Hasidic courts, whatever. That's our role. But that has to shift and is shifting and must shift. And I think it's also
not entirely true. Today in the group of Cherut Center, Amiad sent this picture. Did you see it? He sent this picture from the train where a soldier stood with like a Gemara or something, and there was this Haredi guy standing next to him with a smartphone.
Yeah, it turns out they're both soldiers, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Turns out the Haredi guy is in Shmona Matayim, meaning
How
he's
do you
in
know?
he's serving in intelligence, and she had to take down the picture because they're not allowed to post their faces because they're both in the army. So that picture made a mess. It was a cute picture because it demonstrated the kind of tension. The soldier guy is busy with his Talmudic
study. So I'm
study.
not saying that Charedim don't learn, and I don't say that Charedim don't go to the army, but I am saying that there are soldiers that are actually learning.
Of course. Shira, not long ago, there was a guy who came to my office. He and his son have a project, which is a kind of Talmud online project. Talmud Be'iyun, meaning deep Talmudic learning online. So he said, my son has been in reserves all this time, and he's a tank guy. He's a tankist. He's a tank soldier. I don't know the English terms for it. I'm Israeli here. So he said that as a guy serving in a tank, you have time. You're not the whole time in a tank. You have time. He said during his service, he wrote a sefer. He wrote a part of this online Talmud stuff. He said rather than doing the really hard stuff, he did brachos. He did a slightly easier topic, and he wrote a book, literally.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have real Torah scholars in the army, of course. But don't forget Rav Moshe Hillel Hirsch, who is among the really up there, number one, number two in the Haredi rabbinic leadership. He said, when he was asked this question, he said, we see these Torah scholars in the religious Zionist space who are serving in the army. And he was asked, we're busy saying, if we go into the army, we're going to lose our religion. You look at those guys. So you know what his answer was? He says, they're brought up to look at the army as the army of Yoshua bin Nun. If you're brought up that way, then of course you go into the army, you can be really good. That's not
an excuse, though.
That's not how we see it. So yeah, but it was very telling. It was like a moment of kind of sincerity in this really telling statement that it can be done. It just depends on education.
Only you need to change their perspective. That's
right. So you can't change. So perspective don't change overnight. But yes, I think that it was very revealing, because what it said was that we can be a part of it. It depends on the perspective, and it's something that does evolve. It's not overnight.
How come people don't see it as the army of Yoshua bin Nun or of David HaMelech or of anyone?
Because it's the army of Ben Gurion. The army was a very secular place. Sure, let's not be naive. The army was set up
it's
by
not back then everyone were tzaddikim teorim, or were they?
Well, I don't know how they were, but that's how we imagine it. We imagine Yoshua ben Nun, Joshua's army. We imagine Yoshua ben Nun's army as being an army that was entirely holy, upstanding. Now, the Torah doesn't quite imagine it that way, because you see that there's an entire section called Eshet Yefat Toar, meaning if you go into the army and you encounter a beautiful woman and so on, meaning there's an entire passage that deals with that experience. Which shows that we're not all
Malachim,
we're not all Yoshua bin Nun. But the way we imagine the army of David HaMelech is not the way we imagine the army of David ben Gurion. It's not the same. And indeed, it's true. The army has not been a very religious or very pious, religiously upstanding place. As we know, there's boys, there's girls. It's very messy. And it's only in the last few decades, because of the strong entry of many of the religious Zionist boys, and not just entering into a secular army, but entering into the army with a mission to kind of make the army into a place that's more accommodating, that's more representative of strong religious values. That's caused a shift in the army. And the Charedim were not a part of that shift. So for them, you talked about Yoshua bin Nun's army, this is like a secular army where very, naughty things happen between boys and girls, and we don't want to be a part of that. And that shift is, of course, once, let's say, Hashmonaim, this Haredi brigade, once that kicks off, let's say we get past this current crisis, this, government crisis and political crisis.
I know many people that really think it's not going to do anything. Like the government is going to stay there.
The government will find some way of getting out of it. It won't last forever. I gave Advantura.
Well, till the next elections, which is not...
Now, it's in a year's time.
So
it's 1 year.
They can hang on for a year.
You can hang on for dear life. But the winds of change are are pulling in one direction, and you see where it's going. I mentioned at Torah recently, the word of Hashem, this is in this week's Parsha, in Nasai, the word of Hashem comes forth from between the two kruvim. It's amazing. There's two kruvim on the Aron.
Yeah, I learned it.
One represents Hashem, one represents the Jewish people. Where does the word of Hashem come from? It emanates from between. Not from the one, you say it should come from the kruv that represents Hashem. No, it comes from between them. Meaning there's a voice that comes forth from the very connection between Hashem and the Jewish people, this historical connection. It's a connection in the Torah also, that we study the Torah, but it's also a connection in our history. And that word, I think, is telling us something clear, that we need to be a part of this. We need to take responsibility, and it's going to happen. The question is how.
But also the problem is that many people that speak the word of Hashem, like people that are Talmidei Chachamim and Rabbanim, and they actually are. They say things are different from you. So, the word of Hashem is split up.
Yeah, because it's subjective, because it's the way that you understand it.
Yeah, but then can you say you can say they're wrong, but in the end, I think
they're wrong, and I think that there's something inevitable going on over here. It's irresistible.
But they're trying to keep it in them. It was funny in the beginning of the war. So if you would, and I think it's true, if you would give Haredi guys an easy opportunity to join the army, right in the beginning, they would probably come. Many of them would come because they really wanted to be part of it, because everyone saw what was going on. But then when it became this whole issue, then suddenly they became way less supportive, you can say. And suddenly they really don't want to come, and they're putting stickers of "will die" and "will not join the army" and stuff like that. I mean, not the random guys, but...
Seriously, you see, the thing is, there is no easy way to join the army. Joining the army is tough.
If you would go there and you say, "We're opening up this thing, if you want to join, you can call us," I can assure you people would come.
You know what? People were happy to tie tzitzis for soldiers.
They weren't.
That's
actually,
easy.
They barely... Well, it was so hard to find people.
Well, that was going on at the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
People were volunteering for providing food and provisions, for tying tzitzis, for visiting the sick.
I know.
People were volunteering for doing all kinds of things. But there's a difference between volunteering and staying where you are. But I'm volunteering, I'm doing something outside of my own zone and on a voluntary level, and actually entering an entirely different space, making that dramatic shift, which is a shift in my standing in society. It's a shift in my social belonging. It's a shift in my future. It's a shift in my shidduch prospect. It's a huge shift. That's a big difference. And I think the moment that this became an issue, guys, all this voluntary stuff is very beautiful, but it's not good enough. We need you guys in the army. Then the Charedim said, "No, 1 minute." But that's not so simple.
To have to be in a place where doing the army does not shift your social status, that's going to take years and years. Now, it's more about being okay with changing your social status.
I don't think so. I think it'll happen quicker than you think. Not years and years. People say the same thing about academia. Going to academia, chas v'shalom.
It does.
It's mamash,
When you speak about shidduchim and marriage, yes, my random Haredi friends, they wouldn't date a guy that is studying in academia. They definitely wouldn't date a guy who's in the army.
Well, you're speaking about people from, a very specific sector.
No, I won't tell you names, but really regular friends.
Right, but they're looking for this, Torah student. They're looking for a guy who is in learning. Okay,
and you think that...
There'll always be girls who are looking for the guys in learning. That's fine. But there'll also be girls who are okay with the guy who's not in learning. Let's say he's studying something.
Different.
And the guy who's studying something, so it doesn't make such a difference.
Studying,
being in the army.
They're usually different. Those girls who want someone who's learning, it's most of the Haredi girls from the regular mainstream places. Most of them. And it does change your status when you go to study in academia or go to the army. It does. Now you have to accept it. And for the girls to want someone who they wouldn't mind if he did the army. That's going to take years, definitely.
Well, it depends which goals. It's a theory of change. You know, the theory of change over here is from the outside and in. Meaning, right, you have layers, like an onion. It has many peels, many layers, okay? And of course, the changes that are taking place, the most dramatic changes, are taking place on the outside layers. But it's not the most external layers anymore. It's a few layers in. You see people going to Hashmonaim, for example, that I taught. It was actually super moving when I went to the Hashba'ah, swearing in ceremony in Hashmonaim. I just went there just to be a part of it and to see what's going on there. I also went because I'm a part of Netzach Yehuda, of course. You know, it's part of my Netzach Yehuda kind of duties. And I get that. Things are just getting organized. And then a couple of guys tap me on the shoulder and they say, Shalom Arav. I turn around. These are guys I taught in yeshiva. Guys I taught in Chedvas HaTorah years ago. And good guys from Hanof, from Givat Shaul, and regular Haredi families. Meaning not the kind of guys that you would imagine a few years back or recently back joining the IDF. And they're there. They did their time in yeshiva. They went to Yeshiva Gdola for a couple of years. And then they said, okay, enough's enough. We have to be a part of the army. And they're doing Chashmonaim. And did it take courage on their part to do that? Yeah. I imagine it took some courage. But over time, it will require less and less courage. I mean, you need courage to go to the army. But in terms of social standing, it just become more... It will become normalized. Even now it's becoming more normalized because of all the Shlav Bet people who come back to... And by the way, Kod, as an example, had 4,000 applicants last year to join Kod, which is which gives you an easier, like you said, it gives you a softer entry. You don't need to wear uniform. You become a soldier. You're an actual soldier. It's not a civilian working for the army. You're a soldier. But you're a soldier without the trappings. It makes it easier. And you're doing intelligence stuff rather than combat duty. 4,000 applicants for 400 places. I think the army made a big mistake. In the 3,600 that didn't get in, the army should keep those names and get them in. They're applying. You know, okay, you didn't get into Kod, come serve in regular units. Bevakasha, you know, you want to be a part of the army. You know, those guys shouldn't be left alone. Yeah. But I don't know. You know, the army has its ways of working. It's a big dinosaur. It works slowly and so on and so on. It's not easy with the army. But you see that those guys are ready to do it. And they're not worried about their shit. They'll say, you know what, we'll figure it out. Yeah, beseder. So you see there's motion there. And like you said, not overnight. And it needs to be a process, but that process can be expedited. And that's exactly where we are today. How does that look like? How do we imagine an expedited process? What kind of sanctions are acceptable and what are not?
So I have a question for you.
Good.
Usually people distinguish between guys who are learning and guys who are not. Like if you're in yeshiva and you're learning the whole day, then fine, you don't have to do the army. Do you think it's right?
I think it's partially right. It's a good question. You know, I'm partial, meaning I could hear the argument that everybody has to do army service.
No, not hearing the arguments. Do you feel it's true that if someone is learning...
Okay, so let me... I could hear the argument that everybody needs to do army service and you take a break from your studies, from your Torah studies, and if you want to go back into full-time Torah study, then after the army, you go back into full-time Torah study. And that's, of course, what many people do in the religious Zionist space, or they do 1 year of army service, but they do some kind, right? In America's model, you do 1 year of army service, you don't do 3 years of army service, but you participate, you're still a part of it. And after the 1 year, then you carry on your full-time army service and your full-time Torah study, and you can be a part of the reserves and so on. Meaning, I accept that argument as a legitimate potential model. And the question of, you know, how will the world function without Torah study? The answer is there's always people studying Torah, because you have people who are in the army, you have people out of the army, you have the people in the army who are also studying Torah. You know, you have people in America studying Torah, you have people around the world. Torah study is happening everywhere. However, I think that as a Jewish state, if we're giving exemptions to excelling sports people who are great at football and basketball and whatever, and they get an exemption from the army, then of course the army should be giving exemptions to those Torah students who excel at their Torah studies and could be the next layer of rabbinic leadership, of course they should get exemptions.
Some kind of test or something?
I don't know how to test it. It's not easy to gauge, meaning to figure out what percentage, who should they be, and so on. But that is, I think that's an ideal model.
Yeah.
Meaning people who are, exceptional Torah students, they should get an exemption. The Torah state should invest everything they can in those excelling Torah students who are going to be the next Torah leaders of the generation. Of course, we don't want to take them into the army. We want them to be excelling. Now, to reach that balance, where that balance is,
I don't think
where
now,
to draw the line, we're not there yet.
Yeah, I don't think now someone can say, hey, I'm an excellent Torah learner.
Yeah,
so
we're
I
not
can
there
just
yet. We're not there yet.
that.
And right now, there's so many thousands of Haredi boys who are not even pretending to be the Torah students. That is not at all. And nevertheless, they're not going into the army because they never had an ethos of service.
It's
not on their mind. It's your army. It's not our army, and so on and so on. And just to get those thousands and thousands of boys, that itself now would be a tremendous achievement. And once you reach that level, once you reach that critical mass, that the army becomes a legitimate option, then we'll reach that balance. That balance will kind of take care of itself. Meaning those who want to dedicate their life to Torah study will be a real dedication. It won't be just something obvious that you do by means of inertia, because you have other legitimate options that are also socially acceptable. It'll become something that people choose. And it'll become just a much more healthy and balanced model, which is also much more traditional of what we used to have among the Jewish people. Now, does that mean that, every boy should have a default of going to the army? No. We need to have a default of a kind of Hesder system where we have yeshiva that combines yeshiva study. Meaning we like that. We want people to be in yeshiva. Before the Shoah, before the Holocaust, it was only a tiny fraction that would have any yeshiva education. Baruch Hashem, we're in a much better place. We're in a place where the great majority of people who grew up Orthodox, grew up observant, will have a yeshiva education. That's wonderful. We don't want to give up on that. But the guys who are exclusively in Torah study, those who are going to be dedicating their days and their nights to Torah study, that will be a certain fraction, a certain layer, and the rest will be able to balance, will be able to combine, between the army and it'll take some time till we get there. But the infrastructures are in place. We have today Haredi Hesder. We have several institutions that are Haredi Hesder. It's true, only a couple of them are combat. Most of them are not combat duty, but it's beginning.
They have good guys there.
Really good guys. It's all. You're right. It's a process, and post October 7th is now. We're just a year and a half after October 7th. Don't forget, in terms of historical timeline, this is nothing. And
it's
I realize that there's no patience.
But in terms of the soldiers who do the army all the time, it's hard.
I know. Tell me about it. It's very it's very hard. It's a harsh place to be as a kind of Haredi rabbinic figure. It's a very difficult place to be, and you can imagine all of the kind of encounters that I have with the non-Haredi space. It's every conversation starts with nu. Maya, what's going to be? Where's this going?
You also
it's difficult.
have encounters with Haredi spaces, and they
in every direction. It's there. It's in the air. The issue is there in the air. You can't avoid it. It's an elephant, which is not a hidden elephant in the room.
I have it easy because I don't look Haredi, so people
don't look Haredi.
Not really, not enough. So
well, we have to work on that, Shira.
I think it's fine.
You're okay with it? Well, whatever. But people know you're from a Haredi family or whatever.
Yeah, it always raises the question.
I'm sure it comes up, and it's a very painful issue. And no, I have to say it's very, very painful. I was at a levai this week. Did I tell you?
I mean, I know there were.
There were several. So I was at Herzl this week at Omer Van. I don't remember the family name.
I remember his face.
It's a Dutch family name, Van Gelb, something like that. An amazing boy. You should have heard the Hespedim, the eulogies there. Amazing, really, just an amazing boy. And it's so often you go to these funerals, these levayot, and you just take inspiration. and you also internalize what a
It's
difficult
hard.
space
I used to
we're
go
in
to
today.
so many levayot.
Right.
It was actually the first time ever that I went to a levaya. It was
During this
after
war.
the war, to soldiers. Like, we don't have, Baruch Hashem, yet, close family members who died.
Right.
So it was the first time that I've ever been to a
funeral,
levaya.
to levaya, ever.
To
Was it
ever.
an army funeral? That was your
It
first
was
ever
an
funeral?
army funeral, and since then I've been to, like, I don't know, tens and tens of army funerals. And then there was a break, because, like,
Right, there was this pause.
yeah, like the few months from now, not many soldiers died,
Right.
and suddenly now there were many, and it was really
There were a
hard for me.
few
Like,
that
I was
fell,
thinking to
right.
go, and it was so hard for me to think about going, because it's like feeling it all over again, that we're still in the war and people are getting killed.
So so for me it was just important to actually
Yeah,
participate. You know,
it is.
that's kind of how I feel a
Yeah, I
part
had
of
this
it.
conversation with
It's-
someone once about whether guys from yeshiva should go to funerals or stay learning. He had good points, but
Well, he
it's
was
hard.
arguing for the staying in yeshiva.
yeah, he's like, look, I can't give them anything by going to their funeral. It doesn't give anything to the soldier. And by learning in yeshiva, I actually do good things. But it
Well,
was...
you're learning all the time, and you can participate
yeah.
and internalize and feel that you're a part of it.
And you know, every
and pay the
levaya you see
respect. And you
Charedim.
know what? Forget about all that. Pay. You know, there's a mitzvah of levayat hamet. It's a mitzvah. Which levayat do you go to? You have to choose. Who do you fulfill this mitzvah for? You know,
Well, people
for
who
someone
died
that
for
gave,
you.
that gave his life in our defense, I think that's a good place to start.
And you see Charedim in every levaya. You actually see.
You do. I also saw this week.
There are always Charedim. Sometimes more, sometimes less.
Yeah, but you know how important it is that they should be there? Even just in terms of the kind of Kiddush Hashem, in terms of making the statement that we're a part of it, and you don't see many, you see some.
You see, it
but
depends,
at least,
like, also
but
who
at
is the
least those
soldier.
some are representing. They're saying, you know what, we are a part of this, even if we're not serving or our kids are not serving, but we're a part of this, and we're looking to find the way to be a part of it just by being here. And that itself is something. You're right.
And I think also by going there, you become part of it. It's not just saying it, just also makes you part of it. Like someone once, this guy I dated, and we spoke about it, and I said that I've been to many funerals, and he never went. Like, it wasn't something he thought about it. And then there was this funeral of these 3 hostages that were killed.
That was terrible.
Yeah, and you were also in this funeral. I think I met you there. So it was Danino. He lives in Omot,
Sure.
next to us, yeah. So there was the funeral, and I was there. And then the next day we met, and he said he went there. I didn't see him there.
The next day you dated this guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it was packed, and the funeral was packed. I couldn't see everyone that was there.
That was a more Haredi funeral also because it's a Haredi family.
Yeah, he didn't know that, though. He doesn't know anything about it. So he said that he was there, and it was the first time he went to a soldier funeral.
You inspired him.
I did. I was proud of myself.
You get
But he
credit.
was so emotional about it, and it really changed the way he saw things, because it's actually meeting the soldier. I mean, he actually was a soldier, back before. He was a hostage. But it makes you part of the war, just realizing what people are going through. I think it changed the way he thought about it.
I think that we've been speaking for a while, and I don't know how much more we need to speak, but
Yeah.
but just to make a point, that there's a point of Kiddush Hashem, Chilul Hashem also, which I find also very, very painful. You know, all of Israel is watching us, is watching our political leadership, rabbinic leadership.
Yeah.
Every word is meaningful. Every word is being projected to the masses through social media, through videos, through news outlets, through whatever. And it's so, guys, this is not a shtiebel conversation. It's not mikveh talk. At the very least, demonstrate that we feel, that we understand the pain, that we feel the situation, that we realize and we understand the demand, even if we don't feel that we're ready as we are today to meet that demand in its entirety or partially or whatever. But it's not just what you say, it's also how you say it.
Yeah.
And it's so I find it so painful sometimes to see the lack of awareness that people have about the impact that their words can have.
Yeah. So before we started this podcast, I told you I want to speak about hope.
Oh,
so
that was our alternative topic.
Yeah. So I think it's also a bit here. The Haredi politics is a hard issue. Like, I can say I stopped voting. I never voted for Haredi politics. I mean, I haven't been voting for so long, but
ever since you started voting?
Ever since I started,
all those years ago.
Can't bring myself to do that. And I hope that one day I will be.
Well, I think that there's an urgent need for a different Haredi politics.
Yeah, people are trying, but let's see.
It's not the entirety of this particular episode, but the urgent need is for a Haredi politics that sees its mission in politics, not in the narrow boundaries, the narrow constraints of watering our Haredi back garden, the yeshivas, the communities, and so on, and taking from, Goldknopf had this thing, there's a big bowl, and we're going to take our share. That's literally how he described his political mission. But it's terrible.
It's the way he does it.
And it's very honest.
Yeah.
It's just the way he sees it.
Happens.
He's being candid. Some of the other, Haredi politicians are not as candid. But generally speaking, this is how they see it. Yated Ne'eman says this the whole time. We're here to take what's legitimately our rights for our community and our constituency. That's it.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a Haredi
You should just change
politics.
them all.
Well, there needs to be a differently understood Haredi politics where the responsibility is for the klal. The responsibility is for Israel. Of course, Haredi politics has to bring something which is deeply devoted and Haredi and religious and so on into the public space and be a part of that conversation, of course.
But also responsible and caring.
But with an eye, not just on how do we get Charedim more, apartments and units and land and whatever, but rather to think about the good of the Jewish people living in Israel in the broadest possible sense, in the sense of the full civic responsibility.
Yeah.
And that is something that I'm certain that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I know many people are trying, and I hope they will succeed.
I'm certain.
Soon.
As you know, I have my own involvement in these different organizations or nascent kind of, you could call them, I would say, it's movements. You could call them movements right now. It's not political parties yet, but it's movements.
Yeah.
And certainly this issue of the draft, of the Haredi draft, will be one of the major issues that will have to be, that will also be the demarcation line, the division line between the different movements and parties that are going to emerge from this situation.
Yeah, so I think we spoke about the soldiers that fell, and people always say "Sheniyeh Ra'uim." Can you translate that?
Yeah, it means that we should be worthy of them, and worthy of their sacrifice, and worthy of the amazing people that they were. I'm telling you that today, this week, I went to this funeral of Amel. I thought regular, like secular soldier. He was like in a yeshiva for a while. He was in a mechina for a while. His rabbi spoke about his connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that was so deep, and he took it everywhere that he went, and it was a part of his mission, and he volunteered at every possible opportunity aside from his academic achievements. An amazing guy. You think you're just going to the funeral of a soldier. First of all, every soldier, of course, is an entire world, but you go there, you come out. I was blown over. I was blown over by how incredible this individual was and his dedication. It's always, the guys who are there first, the guys who are charging on the front lines. It's amazing, the dedication, the commitment. Like you said, we should be worthy of them. Yeah,
it's our responsibility to make it worth it. So I think we'll stop here. Thank you to all the listeners and watchers, viewers. And please join us for the next one. Thank you, Abba.
Thank you, Shira.